A phrase that I'm being heard passed around is that there are no conscious men. Now, clearly, this is coming from the ladies. And so, women, this message is for you. It is something for us to be able to start to take accountability for what it is that we're attracting into our life. Life functions based on resonance, it is mirroring us back to ourselves. So, if there are no conscious men around and you hear yourself saying that, then it is the time to ask the question of what does this say about the conscious women? I hear a lot of people claiming to be consciousness when really it's just another layer of their persona. The spiritual ego and the personal development ego, they can be very tricky ones to navigate. And that's a whole nother video. So before I go into this whole there's no conscious men thing, let me first take a moment to explain what it is that I mean by the word conscious. So by being conscious, in essence, it is when we are attuned to the divine, we're tapped into that oneness, we're connected with our essence. And when I'm speaking about a conscious man or a conscious woman, I'm referring to that oneness, that kind of consciousness trickled down into the human experience. And so what it looks like is a lucidity of the mind, an openness of the heart, the ability to maintain connection with yourself and with the people around you. And so with that, let's go back to this whole topic of there's no conscious men around. When women say that they want a conscious man, it is that they are yearning for a man who is present, who can hold space, who has direction and purpose, and who is centered in his heart and in his principles. And so ladies, I have a message for you. Your surrender will evoke his presence. And it goes the other way around too. Presence will evoke surrender, and I'll make another video on that. I've been teaching workshops since 2008 on conscious sexuality and conscious relationships. And there was one exercise that I would do that had such a powerful message to people. I would circle up the men, and then I would circle up the women, and they would pair up. And the women would rate the men on a scale of 1 to 10 of how present they were. So the man would be sitting before them, and they would say 1, 2, 8, 9, 5, constantly reflecting to him how they were perceiving his presence. And the men, they were to sit there and they were to be present. Now, a lot of times going into this, women were saying, oh, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't know. How can I say? And I'll speak to that in a minute. The other part of this exercise is that the men were sitting there in presence while the woman would surrender. So after the rating, judging phase, the men would be able to be there for a woman while she surrendered, while she opened, while she offered, and she gave herself. And when I gave that instruction, I would pull the men aside and I would say at some point, pull your presence away and get distracted. And then at the end, we would debrief this exercise. And there were so many powerful teachings that came through from this exercise. One, the women were saying, I don't feel comfortable judging the men. How do I know? But women, when you rate those numbers, that's the same thing that you're doing when you're criticizing, when you're complaining, when you're saying that you could do better. Well, why didn't you do it this way? All of those are numbers and judging. So while they didn't feel comfortable to do that in the exercise, bring that awareness and consciousness to how you are doing that and thus pulling down the man, which is not going to inspire more presence. And the men, they said that it was so much easier for them to be present when she was surrendering than when she was rating him and judging him. And also, a lot of the men did not follow my instructions where I told them to pull their presence away and distract themselves. They said she was offering herself to me so beautifully. I would have felt like I was dishonoring the feminine if I pulled my attention away. And so I couldn't. I just couldn't, even though that was the instruction. And this is the same thing in life. When you are there and you are offering your presence and you are offering your surrender and you are not judging and criticizing, you will invoke more presence in him. This is how it works. So if you feel that you do not have conscious men around you, then take that as a point to reflect. How present are you? How conscious are you? How surrendered are you? You will attract a partner who is as committed to opening you to love as you are to opening them to love. You can inspire your partner's deepest gifts by offering your own. So ladies, the more that you open, surrender, and trust, the more that you are going to invite and evoke your man's presence. You being able to do this and create that kind of vulnerability and offer yourself in this way will inspire him to step up and be the best that he can be, because he sees that you are offering your vulnerability. It's a gift and he wants to be worthy of it. And so in that, he's going to step up and be more present because of your surrender. Now for this, it's for each of us to do our own work, to be present, to surrender, to not put it on the other person. So just notice that if you start to put it out on the other people and you're saying there's no conscious person around here, there's no conscious men or there's no conscious women, take a look at yourself and see what you can do to shift your resonance and bring that into your life. I'll be making another video about presence and about speaking to the men. If you enjoyed this video, please share it with anybody you feel that will take some inspiration from it. And make sure to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and press like. I'd love to hear in the comments below how you feel about this topic of presence and surrender.